In this video, I'm going to show you the most asked JD Sports interview questions and help you plan great answers to these that'll help you get a job at JD. So let's start with how you actually succeed at a JD Sports interview. And the first thing you need to get right is the basics. So make sure you bring all the documents they ask for. If you don't bring the documents they ask for, it looks really bad and it could cost you the job. So pay attention to that, get a folder organized and bring everything they want. Show up on time and you got to dress for the occasion. So you need to dress suitably formally for an interview to show that you take it seriously. The next thing you need to do is know the questions that they will ask. And I will show you the most common ones that seem to come up at JD Sports very, very frequently. And then what you need to do is have good answers ready to go. And if you watch this video carefully, and are thinking or perhaps even taking notes, you will have good answers ready to go for the most common questions. So let's start with an extremely important question, which is when can you work at JD? They're going to be really interested in knowing your availability, and you have to look at this question from this perspective of the company. If you owned JD Sports or you were the manager at this location, what would you want someone to say? So let's look at what they want to hear. So the first thing is they want people who say yes. So if they ask about a specific time, remember that they're asking for a reason. If they say, can you do Saturday morning? They are asking about Saturday morning because that is a time that they need people. They have that in mind and they want people working at that time. So if they ask about it, you want to try your absolute best to say yes because they're asking for a reason. The next thing you want to do is be open-minded. If you're very close-minded and you're saying no to lots of times and you've got very restricted availability, that's really going to harm your chance of getting a job. The next thing you want to do is be flexible, and really you want to try your best to say what JD wants. So you think about, if you own the company, what would you want someone's answer to be? And you're going to try and say as close to that as possible. So let's look at what some good answers look like. So things like I would be available to work the full range of opening hours really is the best answer. So I can work anytime you need me. The next thing you could say is I'd be open to a mixture of day, evening, weekend, or weekday shifts. So you're showing lots of flexibility there. You could say I'm happy to work around business needs. And you may say something like, I can confidently commit to working all of the hours on the job advert and would be open to additional shifts if available. So that's basically saying that you can do the times that they've advertised. So if they do say it on the job advert, say you can do those times because you're basically matching their requirements. So the more availability you can show, the better. And you want to be trying to say yes as much as possible and offering as much flexibility as you can, and that will go down really well. The next question is extremely important, which is what do you know about JD Sports? And you should never go to any interview not knowing the company. Make sure you've done your research. And to help you, I've prepared a lot of key facts that you can take to your interview and you can discuss to show that you've got a good idea of the business. So fundamentally, what they want to see is one, that you've got the basics, so you understand what this company does. The next thing, they want to see that you've actually done some preparation because that suggests that you're taking the interview seriously. And someone who takes the time to prepare is probably going to be a better hire. And then you want to have some impressive knowledge, some things that only people that have really taken their time to prepare would actually know. And by impressing them, you're going to help your chance of getting the job. So let's look at the things that you can talk about in your interviews. The first thing is you describe them as a sports fashion retailer. That is the simplest and quickest way to describe the business. But it doesn't describe everything, but it's the vast majority of their business. Then you say that they also sell outdoor products. So you're showing that little bit extra knowledge. They have unrivaled brand access. This is what they like to boast about. So they have great relationships with big sporting brands and they can get their products into their stores very quickly when there's new product launches, for example. They have lots of brand partnerships, so they work very, very closely with major brands like Nike, for example, and they have great relationships with them. And that lets them bring their product to market very, very quickly, and the customers of JD can get access to the best brands. They are omni-channel, so that means you can shop in store or you can shop online. They have multiple routes to market. They like to describe themselves, and they do in their reports, as the king of trainers. That is a really key part of their business and one of the main drivers of sales is people coming in to buy premium trainers. They have made brand acquisitions, so they have bought lots of different brands. For example, they own Black's Leisure, they own Clogs, they own Go Outdoor, Finish Line, Shoe Palace, Fishing Republic, and the list goes on. There's lots and lots of companies that they own, and it would be good to remember a few of those and mention those in the interview as other brands that they own. They are multinational, so they're not just in the UK. They have expanded by buying other companies and expanding the JD brand into other countries as well. They were founded by John Wardle and David Macon. And when you think about their names, you've got the J from John and the D from David. That's where JD comes from. So it's good to know that fact. They started in Bury in Greater Manchester. That's where the business originally began. And it began all the way back in 1981. That's a good number to remember. So you can say in the interview it was founded in 1981. It just shows that you've done some research just knowing that number. They are owned currently by the Pentland Group, which bought out the vast majority of the business. It's also listed on the London Stock Exchange currently, but they are the majority shareholder. They have a lot of sports sponsorships, which helps get their brand in front of a lot of people. And I would also recommend that you take some time to read the JD Sports Fashion PLC annual report. So if you type that into Google, you'll get their annual report, and it will describe and talk about how the business is doing, what their major focuses are. And it's a good idea to mention in your interview just to say, I took some time to read your annual report, and here's some things that I found out about your company that I thought was very interesting. And that's really impressive to talk about in an interview. So feel free to take a copy of this, screenshot this, write any notes that you want so that you can take these facts to your interview. And we can move on and look at another question, which is, when could you start? Very simple question, and really there is two answers. Either you can start straight away, or you've got another job and you can't start straight away. So the two options are, if successful, I would be delighted to start at your earliest convenience. So if you can start straight away, that's a good way of saying it. If you've got a job and you have to give notice, you would say something like, I would be available to start immediately after completing my contractual notice period, which is, and find out what that is. Of course, if they've invited you to interview, knowing you've already got another job, they know that there is a notice period, and that should not come as a surprise, but they would, of course, like to know what that is. So find it out before your interview. And that's how you answer that simple question. They may ask, can you tell me about yourself? And people often do terribly on this. They talk about the wrong things. You have to think about, what do JD Sports want to know about you? They don't want to know about your pet goldfish. They don't want to know all these random, pointless facts about you. They want to know, are you the right person for this job? Are you the best person out of the 5 people we're interviewing today? So use this as an opportunity to explain why you're the right hire. So the way you structure it is, you think about your past, you think about now, and you think about your future. So by the past, we're thinking about the experiences you've had. By now, we're talking about those sort of characteristics that you have and you can bring to the company. And then your future is why you want to move to this job and what do you hope to achieve at JD Sports. That's what you want to tell them about. So we start with your past, talk about retail experience. So the first thing you focus on is any experience working in retail, because that's your best experience. Then you think about fashion and sports retail experience. That's the absolute best. If you've worked in fashion or sports retail, you've got the perfect experience. So if you've got that, talk about that and go really to town on it. Talk a lot about that, because that's the most useful bit of experience. Then think about your wider experience. And when you're talking about your previous jobs, link it to JD Sports. So for example, you worked in a restaurant, you spent a lot of time interacting with customers, you dealt with complaints, you managed lots of different parts of the job of being a waiter successfully, and you learned a lot from that. And you can take that experience and link that to being effective at the job at JD Sports. And then any qualifications that you've got, it's a good idea to mention that. Or if you did any training, for example, if you worked in a supermarket and you were taught how to work a till and you're experienced in running a checkout, that's a really good thing to mention, because that's relevant experience. So when you're talking about your past experience, tell them about the jobs you've had and tell them about what you learned and link it to how you're going to be good at your JD job. Then when you think about now, what characteristics are they looking for? So I'll give you a list of things that you can use to describe yourself. So you could say that I'm highly reliable. I've got an excellent attendance track record in my previous roles. I'm very hardworking. I'm easy to work with, team player. ambitious, knowledgeable about fashion. So if you know a lot about fashion and you're really interested in, for example, trainers, you can talk about that. And then you strive to provide excellent service. And you may have shopped at JD for a long time and you're a loyal customer. Now is quite a good time to mention that, because that shows your familiarity and your knowledge of the brand. Then when you think about your future, why JD Sports? So you could say that you admire the company, that you've been a loyal customer for a long time, that you think this is a great place to work, and you're really excited about working in this industry. Something like that explains why this is the right place for you. You can say that you enjoy working in retail if you've got previous experience and had positive experiences there. And then you could say something like, I'm interested in developing a long-term career in retail with JD Sports. So you've talked about your past, your experience, you've showed them that you've got the right experience to do the job, and you've linked it back to JD Sports. You've told them several of the things from this list, which is what they're looking for, and you've explained to them that what you are, your personality, yourself, is really, really motivated to work here, and this is the right place for you. And that's really how you ace the tell me about yourself question. So feel free to take any notes or screenshot this, and I would strongly recommend you have an answer ready for this and you know in bullet point form what you're going to talk about. So let's look at another question that they quite like, is what does excellent customer service look like? And they want to see that you actually know what good service is. And so I'm going to give you some pointers. And if you remember just the first words, you can structure a really great answer. So the first thing is you have to say that great customer service is knowledgeable. You need to know the company's product. If someone comes to you with a question and you don't know the answer and it's something you should know, it looks really bad. So make sure, firstly, that you are knowledgeable. Knowledgeable is the first part of good customer service. You should always be friendly and approachable, that people should be confident to interact with you because you are friendly and approachable. That it should be genuine, that you actually do care about providing good customer service. You're not just doing it because it's your job and you're paid to do it, that you are really genuine in that the whole company has an obsession about providing good customer service, and that service is genuine, that it's consistent. It should not matter which JD store you go into. If you go into one in London or in Glasgow or in Newcastle, it shouldn't matter. You should get the same high quality service everywhere. That's the test for an organization, is can you go to 3 different stores and get the same level of service? That's what excellent looks like. It should be proactive. It shouldn't be the customer who is struggling has to go and find someone to help. You should be actively looking to support customers, to resolve issues before they even start. That's a really great thing about good customer service. And fundamentally, excellent customer service exceeds expectation. So you look at the competitors, you look at what they're delivering, what people are used to in customer service, and you aim to exceed that. That's what great customer service looks like. So talk about each of these and you'll have a good answer. They have asked this in different ways. So they might ask you, tell me about a time where you've provided great customer service or you've received it. So I'd recommend you have an example of a time that you gave great customer service when working in a different role, and a time where you personally received great service, because they may ask for an example and it's good to have one ready. So that's how you answer this question. They often ask, can you tell me about your previous experience? So it's good to have an answer ready for this. So for this, really what they want to see is, can you do the job? Do you have the experience to actually be able to do this? And this is similar to the tell me about yourself question. And we're going to look at a similar approach. The next thing they want to see is there's nothing worrying. So they might ask about previous experiences. Why did you leave your last job? And they're really digging to see if there's anything to suggest that maybe they shouldn't hire you. So you ought to be aware of any questions where they start digging into anything. They try to look for reasons as to why you may be the wrong hire. But if you pass both of those, then you look like a good hire. This is really a tick box. They're looking for, can you do the job? And is there anything that perhaps puts us off about your experience? And that's really what they're testing for. So the way you answer it is you state your full job title. Don't give a simple, cut down, simplified job title. Give your actual official job title, because it tells them more. Then what you want to do is, what did you do and learn? So it doesn't matter what job you had. Every job that you've had, you've gained experience from. So like I said before, if you work in a supermarket or you worked in a restaurant, you have handled customer complaints. You have provided customer service. You've maybe operated a checkout. You've got lots of experience that you've picked up in that job, and you can talk about what you learned in that job and you can relate that back to JD Sports. The next thing you do is you focus on customer service or the most relevant. So think about the job you're applying for in JD, think about the jobs you've done in the past, and talk more about the most relevant and less about the least relevant. Then you won't have a reason for leaving your last job ready. They may not ask about it, sometimes they do. And you don't want to say anything negative about a former employer. You may talk about that you want to move to JD because you see great opportunities there and that you feel it's a really great fit for you. So talk about the positives of the new role rather than the negatives of your previous role. Never say anything bad about your previous employer. Things like you're moving, relocating, these are all great reasons to change job, but just make sure you don't say anything negative about your previous employer. But the most important thing when talking about your experience is link it back to the job at JD Sports. Show them that not only have you got good experience, but that this experience will make you better at the job. Because remember, they're checking, do you have the experience to do the job? And fundamentally, what you want to do is be confident. Be really confident that you have got the experience. Even if you have limited experience, stretch that experience. Show them that you've picked up lots of skills that are going to make you good at the job, that you've actually prepared and thought about an answer. I would have this one bullet pointed before your interview because it's so likely to come up, and making up an answer on the spot isn't great. So think about the jobs you've had and think about what you did in those jobs and how it's similar to JD Sports, and you'll have a great answer. And really, you're trying to convince them that you can do the job and you can do it well because you've got relevant experience, and that's how you're really going to be successful on this one. Before we finish, the last one I want to look at is questions that you could ask after an interview at JD Sports. So they may ask, or almost always do you have any questions for us? And you've got to say yes. And so I'm going to give you some suggestions of some questions that you may want. You're probably going to ask 2 to 3 questions, so have some ready. So you might say, since I am, of course, highly interested in this position, I'm eager to know the next steps in the JD recruitment process. Find out what happens next. When do you find out? Do you get feedback? These are things you probably want to know. You could say, is there anything that you would suggest that I do now to be well prepared for starting if successful? And if they say, I think you should do this or learn about this or look at this, then you can make a commitment to doing that. You could say, can you tell me more about the team you have built here at this JD Sports location and how my role fits in? Find out more about the job, show them that this job is great for you, and show an interest in learning about your colleagues and the organization. You could say, what do you enjoy most about working at JD Sports? And when they suggest things that they like about the company, you can share in their positivity. And before the interview finishes, thank the interviewer for their time and end on a positive note. Make sure that you don't ask about holidays, don't ask about time off, and don't try and negotiate your salary before they've even decided they want to hire you. So I hope this video was helpful to you and it helps you get a job at JD Sports. If it was, please like and subscribe below. And finally, thank you very much for watching.